Morocco hides deserts that seem to stretch forever, mountains that wear snow, and a blue town fed by a miraculous spring. In Zagora, a rusty sign still points to Timbuktu as 52 days. Taliouine's saffron is traded like red gold, and Ras El Ma spills a spring that paints Chefchaouen's streets. Hidden in the south, the Trickle Valley around Zagora in Morocco holds one of the longest uninterrupted palm groves on earth. Do you know Zagora's palms are nourished by ancient underground channels called terraces that siphon desert water for kilometers beneath the sand? Zagora is both oasis town and threshold to the Sahara, where caravan routes once converged and merchants paused. A weathered roadside sign reading Timbuktu 52 jours still stands, an odd, stubborn marker of distant horizons. From the town, the green ribbon of palms and mud brick kasbahs knits life into otherwise arid land. Families tend narrow irrigation furrows, while goats and donkeys move in deliberate rhythms beneath date palms. Past the last cultivated fields, the earth opens into Mohammed and the vast sea of dunes called Chigaga. Each landscape shift marks a cultural shift, from Berber villages clinging to slopes to Bedouin camps on the plain. Zagora sits at this hinge, a crossroads of survival and story, where visible life rests on hidden waterways. The road from Zagora leads travelers into a desert that is not empty, but densely written with memory. In Morocco, the Chebi dunes near Merzouga rise as some of the tallest living sand sculptures in the world. Do you know that the Sahara's Chebi near Merzouga sometimes sings, a deep resonant boom produced when fine sand grains cascade down its face? The sound can be heard for miles, an uncanny bass that turns an ordinary dune climb into an almost supernatural concert. Beyond the roar, the dunes hide micro-ecosystems, hardy shrubs, desert foxes, and startlingly bright migratory birds that follow ancient caravan routes. dawn, the sand shifts color in a spectacle unique to these latitudes, from cool violet to molten gold within minutes. Local Berber guides still read the landscape like a book, guiding travelers to hidden wells, palm oases, and the scattered khazars, where mud brick villages cling to life. From the rim of the dunes, you can trace the road where caravans once crossed toward the Draa Valley, whose palm-lined river channels feed whole towns in an otherwise parched region. Those same channels connect the Sahara to the high Atlas foothills, carrying stories and seeds downhill and bringing traders upward across steep passes. At night, the sky here is a textbook of constellations, astonishingly clear and so full of stars that some nomads navigate without instruments. Campfires reveal a cultural tapestry. Nawa musicians, Berber poets, and Saharan storytellers, whose myths explain how the dunes were born. But these sands are not static relics. Climate shifts and human activity reshape them each year, threatening ancient caravan tracks and fragile oases alike. Conservation efforts now try to balance tourism with traditional grazing practice, protecting groundwater that sustains both date palms and people. In the coming sections, we'll follow those clues from Merzouga's dunes into the green ribbons of the Draa, revealing how Morocco's disparate landscapes are one continuous tale. Prepare to meet the people who call this landscape home. Tent makers, well diggers, and cow camel herders, whose knowledge stitches desert and mountain together. Their lives are the last living bridge between Morocco's ancient caravan past and its modern tourist present. Taliouine's saffron fields turn the anti-Atlas foothills of fleeting purple each autumn, a spectacle found in only a few places worldwide. Do you know the crimson threads prized across continents come from a flower that blooms for just a fortnight in Taliouine? Entire villages slow their rhythm for the saffron season, with extended families rising before dawn to pluck fragile stigmas by hand, while the air is still cold. Each crocus yields only 3 threads, and thousands of flowers are needed for a single gram of spice. That scarcity and a soil and climate mix unique to these sun-soaked terraces and cool mountain nights gives Taliouine saffron an intensity chefs around the globe pay handsomely for. Women traditionally sort and sun-dry the threads, passing techniques down through generations and preserving a craft little changed over centuries. Every year, Taliouine holds a saffron mousam, where growers exchange tips, traders set prices, and visitors taste saffron sweets and tagines. The festival ties this scented world to the red-walled markets of nearby Taliouine and to caravan routes that once carried goods across the southern plains. Beyond cuisine, saffron appears in local rituals, natural dyes, perfumes, and folk remedies that promise memory and warmth. Scientists link its colorant crocine and aroma saffronal to the altitude and irrigation practices that make Taliouine's crop distinct. Between stone houses, you still find terraces and canals channeling precious mountain runoff to the crocus beds below. Those waters bind Taliouine to the high Atlas and to communities where barley and almonds share the landscape with purple carpets of bloom. Small cooperatives now certify harvests and protect farmers from middlemen, turning old labor into steadier livelihoods. Follow a trader down to the souk and saffron threads ripple into dishes, pottery, perfume jars, and stories that cross oceans. New cafes and guest houses are sprouting near the fields, where visitors can learn to pick, dry, and brew saffron tea with local women. In those small exchanges, the spice becomes more than flavor. It becomes a lesson in place, patience, and the quiet economy of the anti-Atlas. Ras El Ma, the small spring just beyond Chefchaouen, spills water so clear it still powers ancient irrigation channels. The stream threads down from the Rif Mountains, carving terraces and feeding the city's gardens and fountains. Local women gather here at dawn, slipping into cool pools to wash linens the same way their ancestors did. Children chase minnows that dart through shallow runs, and seasonal frogs chorus when the rains retreat. Few visitors realize these springs regulate microclimates that help the rare olive and fig trees cling to steep slopes. The limestone beneath Ras El Ma filters water naturally, producing mineral-rich flows praised for nearby herb gardens. Stone steps worn smooth by centuries lead from the blue alleys down to moss-lined basins and hidden cascades. Each stair tells a story of farming seals, communal festivals, and the secret routes smugglers once used through the Rif. Follow the water's path, and it connects you back to Chefchaouen's kilns, terraces, and rooftop cisterns where life unfolds. In spring, carpets of wildflowers colored like the city's walls bloom, where the stream spills into sunlit clearings. Ras El Ma is both a natural faucet and a quiet living archive of local crafts, from dyeing cloth to pressing olives. Artisans still rinse indigo fabrics here, trading stories with shepherds who return from higher pastures at dusk. The spring's hidden chemistry supports microhabitats for insects and plants found nowhere else in the Rif foothills. Researchers have begun mapping these pockets, hoping to protect them, as the Blue Town attracts more visitors each year. To stand at Ras El Ma is to feel the water's slow choreography, how mountain melt becomes daily life in Chefchaouen. And once you follow that ribbon of water, you see how the city's color, economy, and rhythms all spring from this modest source. The High Atlas holds Mount Timbuktu, North Africa's highest mountain at 4,167 meters, creating ice-filled cirques and summer snowfields far closer to the Sahara than you might imagine. Do you know the Atlas Mountains are one of the only places on Earth where cedar forests, alpine meadows, and deserts can be reached within a single day's journey? Ancient cedar and oak groves shelter the endangered Barbary macaque, a tailless monkey species surviving here and in a few scattered enclaves across the Mediterranean rim. Labyrinthine terraces and dry stone villages cling to steep slopes, their irrigation channels transferring meltwater in systems maintained by Berber communities for centuries. Walk a ridge, and you might find prehistoric rock engravings that map migrations and star knowledge far older than recorded history. Hidden gorges like Tadra and Dades carve dramatic passages where red sandstone towers rise like cathedrals, funneling sun and wind into narrow microclimates. In spring, orchids and endemic lilies bloom in pockets of mist, preserved by the mountain's role as a moisture trap between Atlantic fronts and Sahara heat. Local farmers still practice ancient agroforestry, using terracing and companion planting to grow apples, walnuts, and the region's prized saffron on slopes where machines cannot reach. At dusk, the villages light up with wood smoke and Tamazight songs, languages and crafts that have remained remarkably intact thanks to the valley's isolation. These same valleys channel routes used for centuries to carry salt and goods across the mountains, connecting highland communities to the bustling souks of Marrakech below. Climbers and shepherds share the same tracks up stone staircases carved by generations, where mule caravans still haul almonds and dried figs down to market. But before we go, remember that the Atlas is not just scenery. It is a living archive where rare species and stubborn traditions survive side by side. Every step here is a crossroad between ice, forest, and sand, a geography so compressed it feels like a continent, folded into cliffs and valleys. Stay with us as the mountain trails open onto markets, kasbahs, and dunes, revealing how Morocco's heart beats through its highest ranges to Oise. Where snow-capped Atlas peaks rise within sight of the Sahara's shifting dunes, Morocco holds one of the world's rarest landscape juxtapositions. Do you know Casablanca's Hassan II Mosque boasts the tallest minaret in the world, its stone and mosaic facade reaching 210 meters and built partly over the Atlantic. Casablanca is often called Morocco's modern heartbeat, a city of wide boulevards, Art Deco facades, and marketplaces where Atlantic fish are still sold at dawn. Walk from the mosque along the Corniche, and you feel the city trading its colonial past for cinematic modernity, while the shore keeps whispering older histories. Yet Casablanca's true secret is how it connects Morocco's coastal pulse to inland traditions, a transportation hub that threads Rabat's imperial calm to Marrakech's ochre medinas. The train that leaves Casa Port in the morning carries fishermen, students, and carpets destined for the souks, turning the coastline into a living artery. In the Medina, behind unassuming doors, you'll find craftsmen shaping brass and leather, with techniques unchanged for centuries, their patterns echoing Berber and Andalusian lineages. Casablanca sits between those transitions, a modern hinge where Morocco's past, sea, and desert meet with surprising intimacy. There is a quiet magnetism here, not from monuments alone, but from the human rhythms that braid seafaring, trade, and migration into one city story. To understand Morocco, start with Casablanca, and you will see how one port city can reveal the many faces of an entire nation. In Morocco, the snow-capped high Atlas peaks tower within a day's ride of Sahara dunes, one of the world's few places where desert and alpine landscapes meet so closely. Do you know, Marrakech sits at the foot of those peaks and is fed by ancient mountain streams that once carved hidden oases into the city's palm groves. Step into Marrakech, and the city hits every sense with sudden intensity. Ras El Ma unfolds like a living theater, where storytellers, snake charmers, and drums create rituals that shift with the light. Beyond the square, narrow souks fold into one another like colored maps of craft and trade. You can trace a single thread from a copper brazier in the metalworker's passage to a saffron cellar in the spice alley. The Medina's red walls hide riads with secret courtyards, tiled fountains, and orange trees. Many riads draw their water from underground channels that were engineered centuries ago to tame seasonal mountain floods. Walk toward the Koutoubia, and its silhouette anchors the skyline, a marker seen from miles across the Palmyra. From there, the gardens of the Menara lie west, a reflective pool framed by olive groves and overlooked by the Atlas foothills. Inside the museums and palaces, like Bahia and the Saadian tombs, carved plaster and cedar whisper stories of sultans and merchants. Each courtyard hides decorative puzzles where artisans mixed Amazi, Andalusian, and sub-Saharan designs into something uniquely Marrakech. As dusk falls, the city changes tempo. The souks thin and the square fills with smoke and sound. A single meal at one of the food stalls can connect you to centuries of migration, spice routes, and communal ritual. The Palmyra offers another Morocco, a forest of palms threaded with old irrigation and camel tracks leading toward the desert. And you may never think of a city the same way again once you've seen how its desert and snow, its markets and manuscripts all hang together. Stay with us as we follow a water channel from its mountain source down into the city and into the hand of an old gardener. That single journey will reveal why Marrakech grew where it did and how its lifeblood still flows beneath the bustle. Fez harbors the Chouara tannery, one of the oldest continuously operated leather workshops on Earth. Do you know that its stone vats are dyed with natural pigments and centuries-old recipes that still produce vibrant hues? Step through the narrow alleys of the Medina and tannery scents mingle with spice stalls and the rhythm of hand-hammered brass. The Medina of Fes is an urban labyrinth where artisans from generations pass on secrets behind carved wooden doors. Here, Al-Qarawiyyin began as a mosque and evolved into the oldest continually operating university in the world, shaping scholarship for over a millennium. The echoes of students and scholars linger in courtyards, where manuscripts were copied by flickering lamps. From leather to ceramics, the Atarin and Najarin quarters show how craft defines neighborhoods and links trades in an unbroken chain. At Najarin, the historic funduk preserves the legacy of merchants, while wooden balconies overlook bustling markets below. Hidden courtyards open like secret gardens, offering a pause from the Medina's kaleidoscope and revealing intricate Zeli tilework and carved plaster. Bau Inania Madrasa still displays geometric perfection that taught artisans a language of form and faith. Follow a narrow lane toward the Mellah, and you will find an older Jewish quarter where synagogues whisper stories of coexistence and commerce. From there, it's a short climb to panoramic terraces where the city unfurls with its ochre roofs and distant cedar mountains. Fes is not frozen in time. It pulses with contemporary life as workshops blend modern design with ancestral techniques. Every tile, leather stitch, and carved motif is a sentence in a long conversation between past and present. To leave the Medina is to carry home fragments of a living archive. Each object a memory, and each alley a chapter waiting to be read. Stay curious, and let Fes guide you from the scent of dyes to the silence of study halls where history still speaks. By tracing the flow from tannery pits to madrasa courtyards, you sense how trade, learning, and craft created a city both earthly and transcendent. This is Fes, a living manuscript that asks you to read slowly, listen closely, and return often to discover what was hidden in plain sight. Rising from the ochre plain like a mirage, Ait Ben Haddou preserves a medieval earthen city nearly unchanged. This Caesar has stood guard over caravan routes between the Sahara and Marrakech for centuries. UNESCO declared it a World Heritage Site because its clustered kasbahs and narrow alleys are exceptional examples of southern Moroccan architecture. Its clay walls change hue with the light, turning from sandy gold to deep rust at dusk. Inside, finger-like lanes climb between high towers, leading to hidden courtyards and crumbling granaries. You can still see the communal ovens and stepped terraces that fed whole caravans passing this way. Film crews discovered Ait Ben Haddou long before global audiences did, using its timeless backdrop for epic stories. Gladiator, Lawrence of Arabia, and Game of Thrones all borrowed its silhouette to sell faraway worlds. But beyond cinema, the real wonder is how humanity learned to sculpt with mud, designing defenses and homes from earth. Local families still repair the kasbah with seasonal plastering, maintaining techniques passed down for generations. Walk its rooftops, and you sense the old trans-Saharan pulse. Traders, salt caravans, and languages converging here. From Ait Ben Haddou, the high atlas rises like a protective spine, linking this fortress to snowy passes and fertile valleys. That connection explains why the kasbah controlled trade routes and why its stones echo stories from mountain villages. As sunlight fades, the walls glow, promising secrets of desert nights and the next chapter toward Ouarzazate and the Sahara. Tomorrow's journey from here might take you across ochre plains toward the dunes of Erg Chebi, or you might detour through the palm-filled Draa Valley, where oases kept caravans alive for millennia. Ait Ben Haddou is a hinge between mountain and desert. Here, land and people shaped each other for centuries and memory. Martil Beach is one of the rare Mediterranean shores where the Rif Mountains plunge straight into the sea, forming fjord-like coves. Do you know Martil Beach reveals a new crescent of sand each season, exposing tidal pools alive with unusual marine life? A palm-lined promenade frames Spanish-style villas whose weathered walls still carry the handwriting of the 20th century. Local fishermen meet at the river mouth to mend nets and trade the morning's catch beneath lazy gulls. An underground spring cools the harbor, blending Atlantic and Mediterranean species into surprising little ecosystems. Scientists have cataloged rock pools here as microhabitats that host species absent from nearby beaches. The road from Martil curves toward Taliouine, and that short link has shaped both communities for generations. Salt, citrus, and textiles moved along this ribbon, sewing Martil's seaside rhythm into Taliouine's Medina life. Summer brings festive crowds to the shore. Winter strips the scene back, exposing shells and algae patterns like fossils. Those seasonal shifts record ancient sea levels and guide flocks of migrating birds, using the coastline as a corridor. Heading north leads you past Cabo Negro's fairways into rugged Rif foothills, a dramatic coastal flip. That abrupt transition makes Martil a threshold between tranquil beach days and raw mountain trails. At dusk, lantern-lit cafes stitch the promenade together while fishermen repair nets under familiar constellations. Older residents still recall clandestine coves where goods crossed between Spain and Morocco, memories etched in the sand. Martil appears simple at first glance, but every grain of sand tells a story of geology, trade, and migration. Later, we'll follow that story inland to Tetouan's alleys and learn how a shoreline remade a city's character. We will reveal hidden pathways where small estuaries hide clam beds that fed generations and shaped local recipes. Stay with us as Martil's shoreline unfolds its secrets, from hidden coves to the market stalls that carry the sea inland. Guelmim sits where the green of the Atlantic plains meets the first whispers of Sahara sand. Its camel market, one of the largest in North Africa, still echoes with the calls of traders. Long before modern roads, this town was the turning point for caravans heading deep into the desert. You can still trace ancient trade routes in the patterns of dunes and riverbeds around Ait Ben Haddou. Every autumn, the camel fair draws breeders, musicians, and storytellers who keep Sahrawi traditions alive. Here, camel price haggling is a ritual, and music is the ledger of memory. In the markets, you will find woven tents, leatherwork, and silver pieces that hint at nomadic craftsmanship. Local women weave carpets whose designs map family histories and migration paths across the desert. The scent of donkey and spice mixes with surf when you step toward the nearby Atlantic beaches. Guelmim's position between sea and sand has shaped a culture resilient to shifting landscapes. From its streets, you can follow narrow tracks south to the immense Erg Chigaga dunes. Overnight, camping under those dunes stays lit with Nawa rhythms pulled from deep Saharan roots. The people of Guelmim speak languages braided by Amazi, Arab, and Sahrawi influences. Their ceremonies and songs preserve stories of migration, water scarcity, and negotiated survival. Guelmim is a hinge between histories, maritime, pastoral, and nomadic, all pressed into one marketplace. To meet Guelmim is to encounter the many faces of Morocco's frontier, where the desert keeps its covenants. And as you leave, the taste of mint tea and dust lingers, urging you further into the Sahara. Below the gorges, the Dades Valley paints its monks, isolated towers of eroded rock, while rivers feed terraced orchards and rose gardens that perfume the air each spring. Follow the water further, and it disappears into the Sahara near Merzouga, where night skies spill stars by the thousands, and nomads still read dunes like pages. Westward, the landscape cools into the Atlantic breeze of Essaouira, a fortified port where argan oil, carved wood, and the call of gulls mingle in an open market. From Essaouira, the road climbs back into cedar forests and the legendary Blue Labyrinth of Chefchaouen, a mountain enclave whose pigment traditions carry whispers of Andalusian refugees. Each place hands visitors a fragment of Morocco's layered identity, from sea-salted markets to snow-capped peaks and silent desert expanses. Stay with the journey, and you'll uncover hidden rituals, unexpected species, and landscapes that connect human history to geological time. Ras El Ma, the small spring just beyond Chefchaouen, spills water so clear it still powers ancient irrigation channels. The stream threads down from the Rif Mountains, carving terraces and feeding the city's gardens and fountains. Local women gather here at dawn, slipping into cool pools to wash linens the same way their ancestors did. Children chase minnows that dart through shallow runs, and seasonal frogs chorus when the rains retreat. Few visitors realize these springs regulate microclimates that help the rare olive and fig trees cling to steep slopes. The limestone beneath Ras El Ma filters water naturally, producing mineral-rich flows priced for nearby herb gardens. Stone steps worn smooth by centuries lead from the blue alleys down to moss-lined basins and hidden cascades. Each stair tells a story of farming seals, communal festivals, and the secret routes smugglers once used through the Rif. Follow the water's path, and it connects you back to Chefchaouen's kilns, terraces, and rooftop cisterns where life unfolds. In spring, carpets of wildflowers colored like the city's walls bloom, where the stream spills into sunlit clearings. Ras El Ma is both a natural faucet and a quiet living archive of local crafts, from dyeing cloth to pressing olives. Artisans still rinse indigo fabrics here, trading stories with shepherds who return from higher pastures at dusk. The spring's hidden chemistry supports microhabitats for insects and plants found nowhere else in the Rif foothills. Researchers have begun mapping these pockets, hoping to protect them, as the Blue Town attracts more visitors each year. To stand at Ras El Ma is to feel the water's slow choreography, how mountain melt becomes daily life in Chefchaouen. And once you follow that ribbon of water, you see how the city's color, economy, and rhythms all spring from this modest source. The High Atlas holds Mount Timbuktu, North Africa's highest mountain at 4,167 meters, creating ice-filled cirques and summer snowfields far closer to the Sahara than you might imagine. Do you know the Atlas Mountains are one of the only places on Earth where cedar forests, alpine meadows, and deserts can be reached within a single day's journey? Ancient cedar and oak groves shelter the endangered Barbary macaque, a tailless monkey species surviving here and in a few scattered enclaves across the Mediterranean rim. Labyrinthine terraces and dry stone villages cling to steep slopes, their irrigation channels transferring meltwater in systems maintained by Berber communities for centuries. Walk a ridge, and you might find prehistoric rock engravings that map migrations and star knowledge, far older than recorded history. Hidden gorges like Tadra and Dades carve dramatic passages where red sandstone towers rise like cathedrals, funneling sun and wind into narrow microclimates. In spring, orchids and endemic lilies bloom in pockets of mist, preserved by the mountain's role as a moisture trap between Atlantic fronts and Sahara heat. Local farmers still practice ancient agroforestry, using terracing and companion planting to grow apples, walnuts, and the region's prized saffron on slopes where machines cannot reach. At dusk, the villages light up with wood smoke and Tamazight songs, languages and crafts that have remained remarkably intact thanks to the valley's isolation. These same valleys channel routes used for centuries to carry salt and goods across the mountains, connecting highland communities to the bustling souks of Marrakech below. Climbers and shepherds share the same tracks up stone staircases carved by generations, where mule caravans still haul almonds and dried figs down to market. But before we go, remember that the Atlas is not just scenery, it is a living archive where rare species and stubborn traditions survive side by side. Every step here is a crossroad between ice, forest, and sand, a geography so compressed it feels like a continent, folded into cliffs and valleys. Stay with us as the mountain trails open onto markets, kasbahs, and dunes, revealing how Morocco's heart beats through its highest ranges to Wais. We leave Morocco not with answers, but with a map of surprises that refuses to fit into any single memory. From the silent, shifting dunes of the Sahara to the ancient stones of Volubilis, every step revealed a new way. History reshapes the land. You saw cities painted blue, where legend and mosquito-repellent lore mingle, and Medinas where time is traded in spices, metalwork, and whispered stories. You met mountain villages where the last free-roaming Barbary macaques keep watch over terraces carved from millennia. We traced the Roman footprints at Volubilis to the theological halls of Fez, home to the world's oldest continually operating university, where knowledge has been honed since the 9th century. From Fez's alleys, we traveled south to the cinematic kasbahs of Ait Ben Haddou, and onward beneath the snow-capped Atlas towards dunes that shift like living sculptures. Along the Atlantic, Essaouira taught us how wind shapes both music and ships, and in Marrakech, the Red City taught us how markets become stages for life's dramas. Each place folded into the next, linked by river, road, and story, so that a thread pulled in one town unraveled a secret in another. Now, after the colors, sounds, and those tastes have settled into memory, one truth remains. Morocco is not a destination, but a conversation between landscape and a people. It invites not just sightseeing, but curiosity, the kind that asks why the Rif paints houses blue, how cedar forests still shelter ancient tribes, and where the next secret spring hides beneath a canyon wall. If this journey taught us anything, it's that the most astonishing sights are often those that stubbornly refuse to be explained at first glance. So go, open the Medina doors, follow a shepherd up a mountain path, and listen for the stories that the postcards never tell. And when you return, you will find that Morocco has changed you as much as you have tried to capture it, a land that keeps some of its wonders to itself, daring you to come back and discover them. There are more hidden corners left to unweave, more spaces to taste, and more song to learn. Each one a promise that this is not the end but an infiction.